Hello, professional fantasy football league players. Welcome to Week 9 Stardom Cinema Show. I'm your host, Josh Martin, and I appreciate you listening every week. If you're like me, then once again, you cannot believe it is already Week 9. I know, I've been saying that every week, but the fact of the matter is, every week I get more surprised that it's the next week. Season's almost over. Playoffs are almost upon us. I'm going to get you all the way through playoffs, win you your tier so that you can move up into the next tier and win some big money. Because like I always tell you, that's why we play, right? You're professional fantasy football players now. No more of those kids' games. So let's get you started. On today's show, I've got a quarterback who is in my top 10, who I've had outside the top 10 all week, who I'm going to tell you to start, plus a guy who I think a lot of people are high on that I am down on, and I'm going to tell you to sit him. Running backs, I've got a guy who should not be in your lineup, who has had some pretty good performances the last few weeks. And a wide receiver, I've got a guy in the top 5 who has not been inside my top 20 all year. I'm going to tell you to start it. So let's start at quarterback position as we do every week. The guy I told you who cracked the top 10, he's at number 6 this week in my rankings. Remember, you can follow along on my rankings every week at thepffl.com. The weekly rankings tab is underneath the players tab. Click on it, follow along all of the positions. And anyone I don't mention who you have questions on, you can check the rankings. If someone's ranked above someone else, that's who you should start. Hopefully, that's fairly obvious. But in case it's not, I'm going to tell you about it. And remember, follow me on Twitter at JoshMartin33. You can send me any Stardom Cinema questions all the way up until game time on Sunday at 1 o'clock. So let's get started. The number 6 quarterback in my rankings this week, guy who I think you must have in your lineup, is Cam Newton. Now I know, if you're someone who paid a lot to get Cam Newton on your team, you have been disappointed. But this week he plays Washington. Washington's secondary is abysmal. They are the number 3 team as far as highest scoring points given up against quarterbacks in fantasy. That was a really confusing way of telling you that Washington's defense is bad. Start Cam Newton this week. The other guy who I think you should start, I have him at number 9 in my ranking, is Josh Freeman. Going up against Oakland now, they have to travel all the way from Florida to the West Coast, play at 4 o'clock West Coast time. I get it. That's a tough day for Josh Freeman. But I think he's been on such a roll right now that you have to roll with it. Oakland's secondary is banged up. They're bad. I think Freeman has a good day. Next up is my number 10 quarterback, and that's Jay Cutler going up against Tennessee. If you've listened all year, then you know the theme this year is bad defenses. Tennessee is one of those bad defenses who I will always tell you to start a player if they're going up against them. The other one is the Saints, which, by the way, Michael Vick playing the Saints on Monday night. I have him ranked all the way at 5 this week. Cutler is a must start. He and Brandon Marshall are going to go off this week. Make sure he's in your lineup. Guys who should start him over, number 1, Ben Roethlisberger. I have him ranked down at 13 out of the top 12. Playing the Giants, listen, the Pittsburgh offensive line is banged up. And even when they're healthy, they're not good. What do the Giants do best? Come on, give it to me. What do the Giants do best? That's right, they rush the passer. Against a banged up, horrible offensive line, the Giants will get to Ben Roethlisberger, and he's going to have a tough day. Next guy that should be on your bench, normally a guy I'm very high on. Other people are very high on him as well. I dropped him all the way down to 15 this week. That's Andrew Luck of the Colts, playing Miami. Miami's defense is legit, and it's a legit threat to shut down Andrew Luck. They put pressure on the quarterback. They stop the run. They're able to stop the run with just their front 4. And they can drop 7 back into coverage. That's a tough day even for any rookie. Even one as good as Luck, that's a tough day for him. Next guy I think you should sit is Tony Romo, going up against the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Cowboys are finished, basically. I think they've quit on Jason Garrett. That's right, I said it. I think it's a tough matchup against the Falcons. And Romo's had a bad few weeks. And at this point in the PFFL season, I don't think you can trust him. You're not going to get the production that you need. At every position, every week, I give you guys that if you're desperate because of bye weeks, this is a guy you can start. It's Brandon Weeden this week. Now, if you followed along all year, you know that every week I've grown higher and higher on Weeden. A little bit down on this week. He's down at 19. But Baltimore is not the same defense that they have been. He's down at 19 because the guys above him, like Carson Palmer going up against Tampa Bay, Andy Dalton going up against Denver. But I still like Weeden. And if you're desperate, I think Weeden's a nice play. Excuse me. Still a little bit under the weather. I'll get over it. Doesn't matter. It's not your problem. It's my problem, right? Let's move on to running backs. A few guys who cracked the top 10 this week who don't normally get in the top 10. Number one is Alfred Morris. I have him ranked 5th. Carolina is in the top 5 of points given up against running backs in fantasy. Alfred Morris, told you last week, it's no longer shenanigans, right? Shanahanigans, or however you want to say it. It's no longer the Mike Shanahan effect. He is their back. He's getting all the carries. And number 8 is Doug Martin. Now look, I get it. You should be concerned about the fact that Carl Nix is injured. Absolutely. One of the anchors on that offensive line, out for the season. Does it affect Doug Martin? Yes, 100% it does. But I am a believer enough in Doug Martin against the Raiders that he will still have a very good fantasy day and should be in your lineup. At number 9, Reggie Bush. Must start against Indianapolis. Still getting most of the carries in Miami. And the Colts are average to below average against the run. So I think Reggie Bush is a must start this week. Last guy who's a must start is Rashad Jennings. Now I have him ranked at 20th. Not a great rating. But going up against Detroit, MJD still injured. Jennings is going to get all of the carries. And listen, here's the thing about running backs this week. There are tough matchups all across the board, especially once you get out of the top 12. When you get to 13 through 24, you're running back 2. Those are the guys that should be. And then into your flex spot, I am telling you right now, if you get 5 points out of your second running back, you should be very happy. It's going to be a tough week. Unless, obviously, you got, Ray Rice and Reggie Bush. And that's fine. But your second running back is probably only going to get you 5 to 7 points this week. There are tough matchups across the board. Speaking of which, guys who you should sit because of those matchups, Darren McFadden. I dropped him all the way down to 18 this week, going up against that tough Tampa Bay run defense. Chris Johnson had a few good weeks in a row. Looks like he's starting to put it together, and then all of a sudden he has to play the Bears. And the Bears are the best defense in the NFL and fantasy-wise. Bench Chris Johnson this week. 2 more guys who should be on your bench. Alex Green of the Packers, going up against a tough Arizona defense, and Andre Brown of the Giants. Pittsburgh run defense is not that good. However, I believe the Andre Brown experience is over. Ahmad Bradshaw getting most of the carries again. David Wilson getting worked back into the lineup. Andre Brown maybe gets 5 touches in the game. Not worth it. Guy, if you're desperate at running back, is Joique Bell of the Detroit Lions. Mikel LaShore was injured. Don't believe the hype about what the coaches said about Mikel LaShore. If you watched the game like I did, because you know I'm a Lions fan, you saw Mikel LaShore on the sideline with his leg taped up. Now he's starting. He's practiced all week. Mikel LaShore is going to play. But I think he's not 100% healthy. Joique Bell is going to get a lot of carries. If you're desperate, that's the guy you should look at. Wide receiver position. The most unpredictable position in fantasy. Now, am I saying that because I want to get out of being wrong? No, I'm not. What I'm saying is it's hard to predict who's going to get what at the wide receiver position. But It's my job to do that. I'm here for you. So I will do it. Now, most of these are matchup based, injury based, couple of hunches. You'll see what I mean when you look at the rankings. But guys, I want to spotlight Steve Smith of the Carolina Panthers. I have him ranked all the way up to number 5 this week because of the matchup with Washington. Start it. Put him in your lineup. Hasn't scored a touchdown yet. Probably will score a touchdown this week. Denarius Moore of the Oakland Raiders. All the way up to number 9 in my rankings. Now, I just got done telling you, Darren McFadden's going to struggle, right? Well, guess what you can do against the Buccaneers? Throw the ball. Carson Palmer will have a good day. So will Denarius Moore. Jeremy Maclin, yeah, and Deshaun Jackson should both be in your lineup going up against the Saints. This just in, the Saints defense is bad. I think Deshaun Jackson could score 3 touchdowns in this game. I'm serious. And Macklin could get 1. That's how bad the Saints defense is. And I think Philly starting to put stuff together. It's just a hunch, but I think they are. Last guy who I think you should start this week is Titus Young of the Lions. He proved last week he's their number 2. Burleson's out for the year. Ryan Broyles is a very nice flex option, but Titus Young will be a wide receiver 2 this week. And he should be in your lineup. All right, let's move to the guys who should be on your bench for week 9 at the wide receiver position. Percy Harvin. I moved him down to 11. Still technically a starter ranking. Still technically a number 1 wide receiver ranking. But I'm telling you to mention if you have a better option. Seattle has tough, physical cornerbacks, and Percy Harvin struggles against that type of cornerback. So if you have better options, like Reggie Wayne, Demaryius Thomas, even Julio Jones or Eric Decker, you might consider benching Percy Harvin. Next guys I think you should bench, the Dallas receivers Miles Austin and Dez Bryant. Tough matchup against Atlanta. Told you Romo's going to have a bad day, and these guys are going to struggle. I don't know if they're going to get 3 catches between the 2 of them with the way that offense is going right now. Last guy who I think should be on your bench, Antonio Brown. Look, coming into this year, it was thought that Antonio Brown was going to take over as the number 1 receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If this were a PPR league, I would tell you to stick with Brown. But in PFFL, he is a must bench. Dropped him down to 28 in the rankings. He hasn't scored a touchdown since week 3. And that's his only touchdown of the year. You can't count on him for production anymore. And if you've got someone like Mike Williams, Randall Cobb, Torrey Smith, James Jones, Josh Gordon even, those are guys who I would consider playing over Antonio Brown. Last but not least, we move on to the tight end position. Guys who I think you should start, Brent Selleck, theme of the week, going up against the Saints. Brandon Pettigrew. Now look, he's had drops. He's got a case of the dropsies. I agree. But it's a good matchup against Jacksonville. I think the Lions are going to score touchdowns. I think Pettigrew will get one. Guys who should be on your bench, Scott Chandler of the Bills. Production hasn't been there since week 3. It's time to probably drop him, but most certainly bench him. And Jared Cook going up against Chicago. By the way, a wide receiver, I'm sorry, if you're desperate, I forgot these guys. Sorry. If you're desperate at wide receiver, Cecil Shorts of the Jaguars or Earl Bennett of the Bears going up against Tennessee. If you're desperate at tight end, just gave you Earl Bennett going up against Tennessee. Kellen Davis, the Bears tight end. Tennessee is the worst defense against the tight end. Kellen Davis could be a sneaky play. And Dwayne Allen of the Colts. Colby Fleener is out this week. So Dwayne Allen will he will get all of the red zone targets for tight end and will probably get most of the tight end targets. So that's the show for this week. Hopefully I get you a win. Get you start to get towards the playoffs. Get your mind right. Pretty soon I'm going to start playing Eye of the Tiger to motivate you. And listen, make sure you got your eye on the ball here. You guys are professional fantasy football players. It's now time to win your tier. I'm here to help you. Listen to all the great PFFL Radio Network content we have here. Tomorrow is PFFL Live Breaking News. Make sure you listen to that so you get all the breaking injury news going into Sunday. Follow me on Twitter at JoshMartin33. Again, you can send me any start-sit questions up until game time Sunday at 1 o'clock. I'm your host, Josh Martin. Keep smiling, keep listening, and always look both ways.